Hey Grapplers, welcome back to the GrapplTech Golang Bootcamp, and this is episode 8, and today we are diving into constants in Golang. So constants are the superheroes of programming, which are unchanging, reliable, and super useful. Let's explore what constants are and how to use them and some hidden tricks and best practices. So grab your coding hats and let's get started. Firstly, what are constants? Before we dive into the code, let's break it down. Okay, so a constant in Go is just like a variable, but there is a twist. It can be changed once it's set. Imagine naming your best friend forever and you're not allowed to change the name. That's a constant in action. So, what we can say is constants are nothing but immutable variables. So, in Go, constants are declared using the const keyword. Let's check that out. So, here if I want to declare a constant, I have to use a keyword called as const. Okay, and here I can assign any value. For example, whenever constant comes into your mind, the first value you remember is pi value, right? So just I'll add pi and is equals to its value, so 3.14. Now we have declared a constant using the const keyword. They're super useful when you have values that should never change, like when we have mathematical constants, fixed messages, or default configurations. So all this can be initialized using const keyword. So that is how you declare a const variable, a constant. Okay. So now let's check this out. Let us print this. We'll be using fnt print, and here we'll just write the value pi. And now if you run this program using the command go run main.go, you can see that value as 3.14. Okay, so that is what a constant is. So this declares pi as a constant and prints it. And now you cannot change the value of pi later. If you try something like pi is equals to 3.14, let's check this out once. Like pi is equals to 3.1415. If you try to reassign a new value to it, you can see that cannot assign to pi. So Go starts yelling at you, telling that you cannot assign another value to pi because it is a constant. Okay, so that is what a constant is. Once assigned a value, you cannot change it later. Okay, now what about types? So this is a float, right? Like floating point, right? Should we define the type of the value which we are assigning? The answer is no. Go is capable of inferring it by itself. So constants can have different types, just like variables. For example, you can have integer, you can have floating point, string, or even boolean constants as well. Okay, so let's check this out once. So this is floating point value, right? Now let us give different types also. For example, const a is equals to 1. So this is an integer. Let's assign a string value. For example, name is equals to Ishwar. And let's assign a boolean value as well. So const and is true is equals to, let me give a value as true itself. Okay, so we have assigned all the different types to a constant, and let us print this out. Okay, so a name and is true. And now if I run this program again, you can see the value, you can see the output as the values which we have assigned, and even you can't change them as well. Don't forget that. Yeah, so we got 3.14, 1 Ishwar, true. So let me use this print ln gives a formatted output as well. Yeah, so 3.14, 1 Ishwar and true. So that is how easy you can assign different types to our constants. Now what about if you say this, say every time you are using this const keyword and it looks somewhat repetitive, right? Can't we use something called as grouping? Of course, we can group multiple constants as well. So here what we can do is just add a const keyword once and start with parenthesis, okay, in the next line, and remove all the const keywords. Yep. So by doing this, what we can do is, and don't forget to close this parenthesis as well. So this is called as grouping multiple constants. So did you notice how we grouped constants above? So this is super handy when you have multiple related constants. Instead of declaring them one by one, you can group them using parentheses. Okay, so this way your code stays clean and organized. Even now we'll get the same output. Let me run this program again so that you can see the difference. Okay, so that's the power of grouping constants, by which you can make your code clean and more organized. Okay, and now let's level up. So here is a hidden gem in Go called as iota. It's like an automatic counter for constants, and let's see this in magic once. Okay, so let me delete all this, and now for example iota is nothing but first is equals to, I'll just use this iota, and immediately I'll have some other values. For example, second, I'll have third. Okay, now if I try to print this, what will be the output? Let's check this out. Okay, so third value as well. And now if I try to print this, you can see that the value of the output will be like 0, 1 and 2. Okay, why? Because iota starts at 0 and increments automatically for each constant in the group. Okay, so this is perfect for enumerations like days of the week or error codes. Okay, so that is how we'll be using this iota. You can just assign this iota once, and immediately the succeeding variables, like the succeeding constants, will have the values automatically assigned. Okay, and they will be incremented automatically. So that is how we can use iota. It makes easier, some things easier, right? And now let us see constants versus variables. Now you might be wondering, why not just use variables? And here's the deal. First thing, safety. Constants are immutable, meaning they can't accidentally change. And when it comes to performance, constants are optimized by the Go compiler, often replacing their usage directly with the value. So if a value is fixed and will never change, always go for a constant. Okay. And when it comes to the limitations of constants, okay, constants are great, but they have some rules you need to remember. You can use only some basic types, like for example numbers, strings and booleans, or the derived types like arrays, which we'll be learning in the coming sessions. But you cannot use constants for slicers, maps or structs. Okay, even we'll discuss all this in the coming sessions. So you can use only on the basic types like numbers, strings and booleans. Whereas constants are evaluated at compile time but not at the runtime, and you have to remember this. Okay, and you cannot assign a value to a constant from a function or user input. Okay, you can't do something like const a is equals to get user input. Don't worry, we'll learn how to take inputs from the user in the next session. Okay, so you can't do this using a constant. Okay, so that is how, that means you cannot assign a value to a constant from a function or user input. So this is the main limitations you have to remember. And when it comes to some best practices and tips, here are some tips to make most out of constants in your Go programs. Use meaningful names for constants, like we have used pi, right? In the same way, if you want to have app name, you can use this kind of meaningful names for naming your constants. And group related constants for better readability and to maintain a clean code as well. So grouping of constants is very useful. And use iota for enumerations or repetitive values. If you have repetitive values, it is better to use iota. And avoid unnecessary constants. Use them only when the value is truly fixed. Okay, if the value is not fixed, no, you cannot use constant. And that's the wrap on constants in Go. So we have covered everything from basic declarations to advanced tricks with IOTA. Start using constants in your programs to make your code more robust and efficient. If you learned something new today, hit that like button and share this video with your coding friends. And don't forget to subscribe to GrapplTech for more beginner friendly content. I'll see you in the next episode where we'll dive deeper into Golang magic. Until then, happy coding. Thank you.